Welcome everybody at another episode of the Wrestling vs. the World podcast. If you're enjoying your day, sweet. If not, then what the hell ever. So we've got another WrestleMania review here to cover. WrestleMania 23 is now in my playbook here, so we're gonna go over this. Ford Field, 2007, one of the bigger shows where it was given the tagline "All Grown Up." Because you get these vignettes of being like, oh, here's the younger version of these superstars dressed as children, like with the attire, and then years later, oh, now we're all grown up, we're men, we're ready to fight and all that stuff. So it kind of felt weird. Like, I wish I could have gone to this WrestleMania. Like, I feel like it would have been really fun to go to, but let's go over how this show went. Of course, the dark match, it was Ric Flair and Carlito defeating Gregory Helms and Chavo Guerrero in tag match, which was a lumberjack match. I don't think this match was ever even released on DVD. Like, I would have to probably check back on that, but at least with my copy of the DVD, I don't think that match is in there. But let's now go over the main card. Money in the Bank ladder match. You got Edge, Jeff Hardy, King Booker, Matt Hardy, CM Punk, Randy Orton, Finlay, and Mr. Kennedy. Winner gets the contract, and upon winning it, you have 1 year upon winning the contract to cash in for a world title match at any time you're choosing. So this, just like we saw WrestleMania 21, was another great Money in the Bank ladder match. You saw some intense moments there, like Randy Orton giving the RKO to CM Punk up towards the top of the ladder. I remember, Mr. Kennedy talked about in an interview that at one point himself and Punk were at the top of the ladder just slowing it out, kind of like cracking a bit of jokes, being like, oh, never thought we would get here, huh, like back and forth punching for the fun of it. Jeff with the major highlight, he jumped off one ladder to drive Edge through a bridging ladder that took them both out of the match through stretchers and everything, so quite the intense moment there. Mr. Kennedy did a nice thing of giving that Kenton bomb where he had Hornswoggle on his shoulders, almost like an FU, but just did that front roll with it off the ladder. So it's like, thank you for squashing the leprechaun. And ultimately, at the end, Mr. Kennedy would win the Money in the Bank contract, and unfortunately, he would never be able to cash it in because there would be an injury that he would suffer, and he would have to lose the contract over to Edge in an impromptu match because they didn't know the extent of it, and then they found out, oh, the injury's not as bad as we thought. And I know people still speculate or give this revisionist history saying that, oh, he should have still kept the contract and cashed in on The Undertaker like we saw Edge was supposed to do, but it's just like, I'm against that because they thought that at the time Mr. Kennedy was going to be too injured to cash in, and it would not make sense to take the title off Undertaker, who was legitimately legit injured a couple months later, just to then put the title on another guy who they thought was too injured to be able to essentially defend the championship. So, like, it wouldn't have made any sense whatsoever. But still a great match overall. And it's a shame that Mr. Kennedy, like I said, did not get to cash in and be world champion and achieve what people thought he was going to achieve. Now, the second match, the Great Khali versus Kane. Oh, brother. Anytime I see these two names, I instantly go back to their SummerSlam 2009 match later, which was just horrendous. And I have absolutely no memory of their Singapore Kane match Breaking Point, but this match was just there just because I think they were trying to add in some elements with the chain and, like, Hook and everything like that, kind of like playing off of Kane's character from See No Evil. But this match just blew. Like, not really anything notable outside of Kane slamming Khali because, oh, it's been 20 years since he saw the big slam from Hogan to Andre in WrestleMania 3, but, and like in the same state and everything, because you had Pontiac Silverdome, now you're here in Ford Field in Detroit, so different there, but Khali still got the win over Kane. Nobody cared about it. Next up, MVP versus the defending United States champion Chris Benoit for the U.S. title. This would be the last United States title match we would see on a WrestleMania card for years after this. This would be Benoit's final WrestleMania, and overall, like, these two had really good chemistry. Like, I feel like MVP's best matches in WWE came out of these one-on-one matches with Benoit in terms of, like, having one-on-one matches. Solid overall match. Benoit would retain the championship over MVP. They would have a better match, like at Backlash, and then possibly even a better match later on at Judgment Day, 2 out of 3 Falls match. But a really good overall match here between these two. Like I said, it would get better. Now, this next one. The World Heavyweight Championship match. Batista defending the World Heavyweight title against The Undertaker. Title versus streak. So Undertaker, he had won the Royal Rumble finally after all these years, and you remember when you saw him posing and celebrating for the victory and everything, you saw how shredded The Undertaker was. Probably the best physical shape he's ever been in. And after WrestleMania, he has 3 choices. Who is he going to face at WrestleMania? John Cena for the WWE title, Bobby Lashley for the ECW title, or Batista for the World Heavyweight title, and he chooses the third option. And this was a big, huge thing to see, because this would be the beginning of their feud, where they would see 5 big singles matches, this being the first out of the 5 throughout the year. And this was a big thing. Like, Undertaker, his entrance was really cool, seeing that, like, having him have a silhouette within the smoke and everything, with that big spotlight behind him. And Batista, like, he was getting a bit of a mixed reaction here, because The Undertaker was a bigger name, but still, really good reaction. And these two, I don't think you really expected big things between these two. Like, Batista's had some really good matches up to this point. Like, you remember the Hell in a Cell match against Triple H a couple years prior. Some good stuff between them, nothing really stand out. But this match was really great between Undertaker and Batista. Like, Undertaker kicked out of the Batista bomb. You saw Batista even with that running shoulder power slam into the announce table, which was great. But then at the end, Undertaker got the Tombstone Pile Driver, beat Batista to win the World Heavyweight Championship. First time walking out of WrestleMania with the championship, I think, since 13, that we talked about in the last WrestleMania review. Great overall match. I know people are kind of divided as to what the best match was for WrestleMania in terms of, like, the best world title match. I'm going to say this was the second best because of what the main event is and how I feel a little bit more about that. But still a great overall match. And Batista and Undertaker, like I said, World Heavyweight Champion. The feud will continue with Batista afterwards, going to, like, Backlash. You had the Steel Cage match just the same night where Edge would cash in the Money in the Bank, Cyber Sunday, and then closing off the one-on-one feud at the Hell in a Cell match of Survivor Series, and they would pick up again a couple years later. But this was the first out of their best of 5 Essential Series that really pays off. Now, the next match, I remember I just listened to, I think it was Tap Out Corner that made a video about this, about WrestleMania matches that were either cut short or even cut essentially. This match almost got completely cut. The ECW Originals versus the New Breed. So, the ECW Originals represented by Sabu, Tommy Dreamer, The Sandman, and Rob Van Dam, and the New Breed being Marcus Corvan, a.k.a. The Alpha Male Monty Brown over in TNA, Kevin Thorne, Matt Stryker, and Elijah Burke. The whole feud being that, hey, you got the New Breed, there's these new guys who want to, like, rise up and be like, oh, the old days are over, and the ECW Originals, they're the ones that are there that are trying to teach the new guys a lesson and everything. Like, thankfully, like, at least this wasn't as bad as what we saw, like, with the Millionaires Club New Blood thing that we saw in WCW. Thank goodness. But this match was just there, 7.5 minutes. Nobody really remembers it at all. But the ECW Originals would defeat the New Breed in this 8-man tag match. And this was another match for RVD winning, so he's still undefeated at WrestleMania, technically. Because, like, 18, he beat William Regal. 19, he didn't have a match because that was on Heat. 22, he wins Money in the Bank. And now you got this match here at 23. So, congrats on RVD for still remaining undefeated. But it was just there. Now, next one. Oh, boy, the Battle of the Billionaires. Bobby Lashley representing Donald Trump versus Umaga, who's representing Mr. McMahon. And he's got Armando Alejandro Estrada in his corner. And we got Stone Cold's referee. So this whole thing had been going on, like, Vince wanting, like, having this big match at WrestleMania. And all of a sudden he's like, oh, I want to have Donald Trump at WrestleMania. And they decided to put hair versus hair. Vince is acting crazy and everything. At one point, he attacked Eugene and shaves his head and all that stuff. And this was after Eugene's failed heel run. So they both have their representatives here. And there have been some rumors about, like, who the original plans were. Like, saying that Shawn Michaels was going to represent Donald Trump and King Booker was going to represent Vince. But instead it became Lashley, Umaga, and Lashley ECW champion. So another WrestleMania where the ECW title is not even up for grabs. But hair versus hair, whoever loses their billionaire representative, it's gonna be shaved bald. So it's either gonna be the Orange Man or the Shit Man. And at the end, Lashley would defeat Umaga. It was a solid overall match. Stone Cold even took a bump during all this. You had Shane getting involved with the Coast to Coast and all that stuff, which was fun. And you even saw Trump getting into it with Vince and tackling him and punching him. But Lashley would get the spear and pin Umaga. And then Vince would get strapped to the chair in the ring and get his head shaved completely bald. So that led to a whole thing about Vince having to try to hide it. And then Trump took one of the worst stunners in history during a beer celebration with Stone Cold Steve Austin. So at least Stone Cold could say, hey, he ended up stunning the only person to ever get in the ring that ever became U.S. president. It's just a shame he took the stunner so terribly. Now, this match I know was initially not supposed to happen because of time constraints, and then again, they kind of factored in with the ECW Originals match for time and everything. But they squeezed in Melina defending the Women's Championship against Ashley in a Lumberjill match. So, second time on this show, but the only time televised, but second time we see any kind of Lumberjack-esque match here. I'm saying that because Lumberjills, like females only and everything. But this was a nothing match. It lasted less than 4 minutes. Melina retained the title over Ashley. Nobody is going to really remember this, but no disrespect to either woman. It was just a match thrown in there. Then you get the main event. John Cena defending the WWE Championship against Shawn Michaels. Both men were World Tag Team Champions at this time, but you probably forgot that because neither of them brought the tag team titles with them here to WrestleMania. So the whole feud was that Shawn almost won the Royal Rumble, just barely losing to The Undertaker. Then afterwards, he wins a triple threat against Randy Orton and Edge on an episode of Raw, so he's number one contender. And then they also, John Cena and Shawn Michaels team up and win the World Tag Team titles against Rated RKO, Randy Orton and Edge. And Shawn was trying to say, oh, he's going to have Cena's back up until around WrestleMania. And they won a tag match in No Way Out against Batista and Undertaker. Then they lost the rematch because Shawn super kicked Cena. So they've got this big match, one-on-one. Cena, you remember his entrance, like going through the car, just going through the streets of Detroit, and the next thing you know, crashing through the glass. And this was like, and you also probably remember the early part if you watch the unedited version of the show, like the live version, where the fan jumps in the ring trying to strip, being like, sir, this is not the freaking Super Bowl. You don't need to run around streaking here. But this match was absolutely awesome. I feel like they did even better than this and their match a few weeks later on Raw, about like when they went to London. But this match was fantastic. I feel it was a little bit better than the Undertaker Batista match. You even saw Shawn during the match, like he got busted open because he got launched into the ring post and he's bleeding on the side of his head. And during a rare point where we saw in WWE, he actually delivered a pile driver on the base part of the steel steps that you don't take off and throw into somebody's face or anything like that. But he actually launched a pile driver here during a point where the pile driver wasn't really allowed in WWE. Like, it felt a little, like, reminiscent of when he did it to The Undertaker inside Hell in a Cell 10 years prior. But still, that pile driver was great. You saw Shawn even doing that Asai moonsault to Cena where they couldn't quite go through the announce table because it just wasn't calculated properly. Cena even ducked Sweet Chin Music, which took the referee out. But after all was said and done, Cena got like a bit of a modified version of the STF because usually he's flat on the person's back and they're laying on their stomach, but Shawn kind of rolled onto the side, so it had a bit of a different angle to it. And afterwards, Shawn tapped out to Cena, and Cena retained the WWE Championship. So 2 years in a row, he retains the WWE title via submission against both members of DX. And then I know something was going on, like I can't remember the story, but Shawn was like supposed to shake hands with Cena because Cena offered his hand in the aisleway, but Shawn just gave him a dirty look and walked away. I know there was something, I don't know if it was something about him not being happy with Cena selling or something like that, but like something happened there to where Shawn just did not go, like he went against the script. But still, a phenomenal match regardless, and like I said, they would get even better than this during the Raw Marathon match, as they call it in London for April 23rd, 2007, but still, like, I feel like this was a little bit better than the previous world title match that we saw earlier in the night. So yeah, this definitely a great WrestleMania. Because, like, the Money in the Bank ladder match was great. MVP Chris Benoit was really good. Undertaker Batista was great, and I feel like exceeded expectations. Lashley Umaga I felt was solid, and Cena Shawn Michaels stole the show for me in the main event. And then the other matches, like, the ECW original Newbury match was just there. Nobody remembers the women's title match because it wasn't given time. And Khali Kane was just bleh. It's whatever, but still, I feel this was a great WrestleMania. Like, it would get better even with WrestleMania 24 the next year, but still a really great WrestleMania. And like I said, I would have loved to have gone, if I could build a time machine, I would go back and watch the show, be there in person. Because, like, you look at the atmosphere that they gave, even with the intro for the show, like, seeing the pyro and showing the crowd and everything, this had the look and feel of a WrestleMania. Maybe because it was the lighting and being indoors or something like that, but this had that WrestleMania feel when you tuned in. But yeah, let me know in the comment section below. For anybody who watched WrestleMania 23, what did you think about it? Let me know in the comment section below. If you enjoyed today's episode of the podcast, folks, please remember, leave a like, subscribe to the bell, turn on here on YouTube, comment what you thought below, and I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks for listening, folks. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace out, and good day, everybody.